Hey everyone, David Rishpan here again with you on YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. My initials are DR. Sometimes people call me the doctor. Today, the doctor is in. We're going to talk about jam session etiquette, what to do and what not to do at a jam session. So what I'm going to talk about in today's video is tune-based jam sessions, song-based jam sessions. This could be a jazz jam session where you're playing standards, an R&B jam session, a blues jam session, but any jam session that revolves around knowing repertoire. Open improvised jam sessions like Producer Mondays in New York or Le Cypher here in Montreal, Grove here in Montreal. That's a different type of jamming, a different type of interacting with a band. That might be a separate video, or I'll link to a really great Instagram video that my friend Vincent Stephen Ong did about how to interact in that setting. Today, I'm going to talk about tune-based jam sessions. And everything I'm going to talk about kind of falls under the umbrella of this phrase. And this phrase is honesty is the best policy. There is no shame in admitting you don't know the tune that has been called at the jam session and either renegotiating the tune to call a tune that you do know, or if you're the last one up on the stage and the tune has already been decided, there's no shame in sitting back down and listening. There's no shame in listening at a jam session. I see with an increasing frequency people saying they know tunes at a jam session or calling tunes that if they're the one who's calling it, I assume that they know it. And they'll either open iRealPro on their device or they just won't actually know the tune. My theory about this is that it comes from a place of fear. You don't want to be vibed or thought of as uncool or unhip for not knowing a tune. The expectation seems to be that because we get our music primarily from streaming platforms and everything is there when you just type the name of a tune in a search bar, iRealPro, everyone seems to have iRealPro on their phone. You can get all the fake books as PDFs. You don't have to buy them in paper format. So the amount of information that is kind of instantly available, I think people are afraid that they're going to get vibed for not knowing something because the information is much more readily and widely available. I would say this: you're not going to get vibed for not knowing the tune and then sitting down and listening and being part of the hang and making a note to learn it for the next time you go back to that session. You will be vibed for making a fool of yourself and making a mockery of the music because you were not strong enough or confident enough in your musicality to just admit, hey, I don't know this tune. I'm not totally anti iRealPro, but we need to be very clear about what iRealPro is and what it is not. iRealPro gives you the chord changes. That is all that it gives you. And it gives you a decent play along track if you're using the audio, but it only gives you the chord changes. It does not give you the melody. It does not give you the punches. It does not give you the intro. It does not give you the coda. If you don't know those things, you don't know the tune. I came up through jam sessions. I learned a lot going to jam sessions. Jam sessions are not your practice room. And it's a different type of education that happens there. And my goal when I go to a jam session is that I'm trying to get to making music as quickly as possible. I am trying to make the group of musicians that are on stage together, I want that to feel and sound like an instant band. I want us to all sound as good as possible, as quickly as possible into the tune. A jam session is not really a place for me to take 17 choruses to demonstrate everything that I've been working on in my own individual practice time. It is also not the place for me to tackle a musical problem that I haven't fully solved yet. Many years ago, I was at a pretty renowned jazz club in New York at their jam session, and someone called the standard, "Have you met Miss Jones?" And it's a very common standard. All of us knew it. And when it came time for the bassist to solo, he could not solo over the bridge. He could walk the bridge just fine. He sounded good for all of the other soloists, but he was not at a level where he could improvise over the bridge. And every time we came to the bridge in his solo, he would get lost. And then we would set the last A back up for him, and the whole cycle would continue. The second chorus, the third chorus, the fourth chorus. Every time in the bridge, he would get lost. He would be a bar ahead, a bar behind, whatever. And ultimately, after a few rounds of this, the host gave me the signal of, please get us out of this. And I just started playing the head out at the top of the next form, and the horn players joined in. We played the end of the tune. We ended the tune. And I'm sure he went home next week and practiced the bridge of "Have You Met Miss Jones?" and came back, and I'm sure he sounded much better the next time he went back to this club. That's the point, And I should mention that at this particular session, the host was not an asshole about it. He gave me the signal, and only me the signal, of, please, let's end the tune. But he didn't say anything nasty to the bass player. He didn't say anything snarky behind the bass player's back. We all knew, including the bass player, that this guy could not solo over the bridge. I will say part of the reason I feel this way and I'm making this video is because I see a very profound generational gap. I came up at jam sessions, and I came up before YouTube, before iTunes, before streaming, before iRealPro. And so the investment that we had to make, my generation of musicians and older had to make in learning songs, was much deeper. I remember when I was a young musician, when I was growing up in Toronto, I went to a jam session at the Rex, and someone called "A Night in Tunisia," and I stepped off the stage because at the time I could never remember the interlude of "A Night in Tunisia." And instead of wanting to fall on my face and possibly derail the entire band, I just decided to pass it over to the host piano player and take a crack at the next tune that was called. And at a certain point, I look up, they've started playing the tune, and I see that there is no piano player on stage. And all of a sudden, I feel a hand on my shoulder, and it's the house piano player. And he's like, "You're going to learn this interlude." He brings me up on stage, and I knew the rest of the tune. I knew AABA. And then the interlude came around, and over my shoulder, he called all the chords in time. I have never forgotten the coda or the interlude of "A Night in Tunisia" since. He wasn't an asshole about it. It was tough love. It wasn't snarky. It wasn't vibey. It was a very clear act of mentorship for which I am grateful. You are going to learn this tune. You're going to learn it in a way that you're never going to forget it. And you're not going to have an excuse to step off the stage when someone calls "A Night in Tunisia" next week, next month, next year. Many years ago, I was on a panel at the Ottawa Jazz Festival, and Jason Moran was participating remotely from New York. And Jason Moran had just started teaching at the Manhattan School of Music, I believe, at this time. And he brought up that he would ask his students, "Have you checked out Thelonious Monk?" And the response he would get from his students was that, oh yeah, I have Monk on my iPod. Those are not the same thing. Having Thelonious Monk on your iPod or saved on a Spotify playlist is not the same thing as having checked it out. That is not the right response to the question, have you checked something out? And that's what I'm seeing when people show up and open iRealPro at a jam session. It was very frowned upon when I was going to jam sessions to show up with the paper real book or any other fake book of the time. And now, because we all have our phones, they're in arm's reach, they're everywhere, there's somehow this idea that looking at iRealPro at a jam session is less bad than showing up with a paper fake book. It's still the same thing. It still means you don't know the tune. I'm not against iRealPro 100%. If you know how to use it, if you understand that all that iRealPro gives you is the chord changes, if there's a tune that gets called and you're a rhythm section player, and you kind of remember the tune, but you don't remember all of the chord changes, or somebody called it in a transposition that you're not comfortable with, that's one thing. I try to use it as little as possible. I actually don't have iRealPro loaded on any of my devices. But in a pinch, if somebody calls a tune or calls it in a key that you're not familiar with, it can be a good memory aid, let's say. But you need to put in the work to actually know the tune outside of iRealPro. Just reading through iRealPro does not constitute knowing a song. The other thing I would add is that if there is a singer on the gig, if there is a singer at a jam session, everyone in the band needs to know the lyrics of the songs the singer is calling. It makes for a much more musical performance if you know the story you're trying to tell. And also, if something goes wrong, if the singer makes a mistake in the structure, either they come out of the solo early or they sing the wrong verse and then they go to the bridge, whatever. If everyone, at least in the rhythm section, has their heads up and their ears open, you can avoid the potential train wreck of somebody not knowing where they are. If you have your head down in your music stand, down in your phone in iRealPro, it's a recipe for disaster because you don't know the song, you don't know where you are, you don't know the lyrics because there's no lyrics in iRealPro. So when something happens in the form, you are not able to adapt and make the most musical save out of the error that has occurred. Everyone on a vocalist's gig should know the lyrics. The final thing I would add is not purely related to jam sessions, although I find it's more important at jam sessions than just on regular gigs, perhaps. I would love to see more intergenerational exchange. I'm going to turn 40 this year. I've been a professional musician for 25 years, and I regularly go to support my colleagues who are in their early to mid 20s. Part of it is to stay attuned with who the new cats are on the scene, to discover new talent in the city I'm in, or even when I'm on the road to check out other musicians. And then part of it is because I learned so much from mentorship. I learned so much going to jam sessions in the clubs, at people's homes when I was growing up in Toronto, and being surrounded by all generations of musicians, from guys, I guess they would have been in their 60s or 70s at that time, to kids who were my age, 15, 16, 17 years old, pre-university, just getting our feet wet in this music we call jazz. And so I feel compelled to pay that mentorship forward, for one. And secondly, there's there's a certain amount of being able to fix problems from the stage, from the bandstand, that you only get from having had to have done it. You know, uh, if everyone at the jam session is 25 or under and they never get the chance to play with older musicians, there's a certain amount of uh, being able to, I don't want to say manipulate, that's the wrong word, but there's a certain amount of malleability in the music and malleability in how to navigate certain situations that you only get from experience, you only get from doing gigs, you only get from learning lots and lots of tunes. And if those older musicians are not in the room, then these younger musicians are less likely to receive that knowledge and that wisdom. So I make it a point to go check out the younger cats in town and to, as much as I can, share what I have learned and what I'm continuing to learn. That's also why I make videos like this, is to share all the things I have learned in the past 25, 30 years, and that I continue to learn by exchanging with my friends and my colleagues. All right, that wraps up this doctor's appointment. If you enjoy lessons / rants like this, please click all the little buttons below the video, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching. My name is David Rishpan. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.